Yes, you could.
Right? It's just like that. It's just now that's.
I bet that happens a lot to you.
What?
Like, can we do our own thing? Or do you suggest that? Like, I feel like, you know what I'm saying? Like, something new comes up and you're like, instead of being like, oh man, I wonder if anyone does that. It's like, couldn't we just do our own?
Yeah.
Because Francis is like that.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I talked to him just to pick his brain, and he was like, I just opened a coffee shop. And I was like, but like, okay.
So you knew Francis way before then?
So I just knew him from the convention scene.
The
Because I would table at C2E2, and then there's not many Filipinos.
Which is coming
around. It is at the end of the month, man. So I saw him there, and we were both just like kind of smiling at each other. We saw each other. It's like there's not a lot of Filipino vendors.
Okay.
So I was just like, this dude's cool, and it was in Seattle. So he was like, oh man, I love your work. So you Filipino? I was like, yeah. I was like, oh, like you're repping pins. I've heard of you. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, where are you from? I was like, Chicago. And he was like, me too. I was like, what? You are? It's like, should we connect?
That's how Francis.
And now it just became like this bromance.
That's how
now I just
is.
love. I just shot his boards.
I saw that.
thing.
I'm like, damn, Francis, another side also. Like, you're just on it.
Fucking beast.
Welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here.
I feel like we've, and this happens with a lot of guests, but like just been connecting online, and it's like previously said off air, like kindred spirits when you finally meet in person.
Totally. It's like one of those moments where it's not usual nowadays, right? Where it's like, oh, I met someone in IRL in real life that I connect to, but it was also super weird because we have so many overlaps.
Right.
This was an eventuality. Like this. This was Thanos. This was weird. This is inevitable.
That and the Rodman picture was two of my favorites for sure. And we'll get to those.
Yeah, thanks.
But I want to start. I had two quotes in mind. One is from you. One's from Kobe.
I have a quote.
Yeah, it stuck out. It stuck out. So the one from Kobe. It might be like multiple quotes kind of put into one, but it's about legacy. So it goes, you are responsible for how people remember you. If you do it right, your game will live on in others. So leave everything on the court. Leave the game better than you found it. And when it comes time for you to leave, you leave a legend.
Oof. Wow.
Kobe. And
that's a strong
right?
quote.
Like when you embark on an entrepreneurial journey or a creative endeavor, it's maybe different for different people, but that level of like legacy or leaving something behind or even status or prestige, and when you start learning about self-awareness and ego, it's like that like messes with your head of like how much do you actually still care about that stuff. But that kind of leads me to then think about, how do you go all in? How do you become the GOAT and not sacrifice other parts of your life?
That's really interesting. When I hear that quote, number one, it gets pretty emotional because as a Filipino, like a son of two Filipino parents who came here, right? They used basketball to really assimilate us into everything.
Was it through church?
It was through
or just camp.
it was actually through like just park districts.
Nice. Okay.
But my dad played in like the PBA leagues and the PBL leagues.
Oh wow, okay.
And so I would just travel with him. Like each Sunday was like Conrad was coming with me, and I would be young and I would just watch him play.
Wow.
And I'd be out all day. And so it became almost like a religious type of experience where it's like you do this all the time.
Right.
And so it became a part of me. Right. And so in terms of your question, I think that if you're working towards a goal in terms of like entrepreneurial pursuits or something like that, it's almost impossible to not have part of you like injected into it. Right. So have you always liked photos, you're going to find your way towards photography. Right. And if you're like me, a basketball nerd who through sports really was able to connect with people. Right. I was living this duality of, you come from heavy Asian tradition, but also at the same time, I also want to have like friends and not feel almost like alienated
isolated,
or outside.
yeah.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So I think that where the effort and the intention is there, intention is everything. Like I feel like with your pursuits, people can feel intention. right? Like instead of it feeling like, especially nowadays, I'm an entrepreneur, right? It almost can seem salesman-y.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You don't know it until you actually do it.
No. And that's, oh my gosh, it is so cool to tell people and remind people that, like, I get DMs all the time about Sports Illustration or how to get into art. And I love telling people that it's like, I just kind of winged it in the beginning. And I stayed at home as long as I could. And I just kept going towards it. This is year 6, actually. A couple days ago, I celebrated year 6 of freelancing.
Does it feel long or does it change at times? Like it feels like it flew by?
It feels like it flew by.
Okay.
I think the only thing that really in terms of time that has felt interesting is that a lot of the goals I set for myself early on, where I was like, that's a 10-year goal or whatever.
You got those goals early on.
I was able to get them very early on in my career, which is also because like it was such an undiscovered niche.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I remember at the time, this might be skipping towards a question, but I remember while I was thinking about leaving my 9-to-5 job, I was thinking to myself, like, where do I want this to go? Right? Intention is going to be a thing that I always kind of harp on. Like, what is the point of this? Like, am I just looking to do art because, I don't know, it's something I've always wanted to do? Is it because I went to art school and now I wasn't really doing art per se at this 9-to-5 job? But it's so crazy about manifestation. It's so interesting when it's kind of like working out, where if you like track all your food and you work out 5 days a week and you really watch your sleep,
it becomes habitual.
Habitual.
Yeah.
If all your efforts are going towards one thing, it's almost inevitable that you get closer to it.
Inevitable. Yeah.
It is inevitable. See, yes, we are inevitable.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because there really is no blueprint for anyone.
Right.
It's just so based on the individual and where they come from. It's like, use what tools you have, right?
Which leads me to your quote. I'm
gonna love this.
Yeah. It's very short. It's okay. Being creative is the art of problem solving.
Yes. Gosh.
Conrad Javier, you know?
Yeah, I know. It's on my business card, Pill Nimbus. It's just on there. I've adjusted that quote slightly.
Okay.
And it's definitely the art of problem solving, but I feel like art, being a professional artist or creative, is like, it's the act of self-expression, right? Through problem solving, discovery, and intentional experimentation. So it's kind of like, yes.
The problem solving aspect is very entrepreneurial, of it.
I agree.
Right? To be able to gauge and feel and empathize what people are lacking or needing.
Empathy is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
You have to empathize when you have a new client.
Right.
When they reach out to you, I don't know I can't tell you how many gigs I've gotten because I thought for a second that I'm not just A and you're just B, and this is just a transaction, right? Actually, my 9-to-5 job before I became freelance, it was in the screen printing industry. I knew nothing about screen printing, but it's just the connection. That's what people connect to, right? It's so very rare. Like even now, like look at us, we're having like a genuine connection.
And
dude.
I know.
So cool.
And that's why I'll continue to do this for free. No sponsors or anything like that.
Maybe Squarespace one day, just like in the beginning.
Everyone and their mother. Build your own website. Everyone has a website these days.
Wix.
Thanks, Peter McKinnon. You're in my head now. So to take it back, way back to kindergarten, when you were trying to enter like art contests, and coincidentally your older brother was in it too. He's very creative and artistic as well.
He is.
Okay.
He is.
And you at one point like sought him out as a mentor or like seeked advice.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. As competitive as three brothers can be, I did ask him in kindergarten to teach me how to draw. You know, he was the guy. There's always that one guy in the school, right?
That's badass to have it within your own brother. Like,
I mean, it was badass to me, you know, as a kindergartner.
Right.
Like, I'm like, dude, this guy's gonna teach me everything I need to know. Yeah. He's gonna be this mentor to me. But his response was anything but was pretty brotherly.
Okay.
He told me to teach myself, and I just remember being that's in a very gentle way of putting it. He was older. I get it. He's the guy.
Where does it come from? Competitiveness, insecurity?
100%, I think, competitiveness. Okay. I think if there's anything that my parents instilled into my brothers and I, besides like discipline and the sense of duty, right, that comes with it, and family, is the competitive nature.
Wow.
And it was cool because when it could have went multiple ways.
Yeah.
You know, he told me, he said, go teach yourself. And I could have very much not drawn.
Was he self-taught?
He was.
Oh.
And he had natural talent. He still does. Yeah, Chris. Shout out to Chris. He very much he would see the world in a very creative way. And I remember just like seeing his drawings. I'm like, I've never thought about that before. So of course, after he told me to teach myself, I did. I spent all night and like just drawing. Like I don't know how old I was. How old are you in kindergarten?
Oh man, I mean 5 or 6.
5 or 6, yeah.
5 or 6, yeah.
So I would just draw, and I was drawing on the backs and the fronts, and hiding my drawings in my sock drawer because I didn't want my parents to see that I was wasting paper. Like to me, it was like I'm wasting paper, you know?
Okay.
So I was just drawing and drawing and drawing, and then the day comes of the announcement, and they say, you know, we actually have 2 winners this year. You know, everyone's like, my brother Chris is just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, who's challenging the throne here?
So he's been winning.
He's been winning. So the little backstory is anyone who wins the contest, this whole school would wear the shirts, and we'd walk around the block a few times.
So they'd screen print them on shirts.
Yes,
That's cool.
It was a huge honor.
Yeah.
And it was for Earth Day. So Earth Day holds like a special place for me. And so they said first, you know, Christopher Javier. And it's like, oh, yeah. You know, everyone's like, it's not surprised. And his little brother, Conrad. And so it's just quiet in this like little basement auditorium of the school. And you just hear me go, yes. And it's just me. Like, yeah. And that, if it wasn't for that push for him, and I think it's so symbolic in many ways because I had to do it myself. If it wasn't for that, I would not be where I am at all.
That's wild. And
it was the single most defining point to its drawing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Was there any point in you where you were curious if he'd be upset, or like to where you would quiet your level of like happiness after you heard that?
Strangely, no.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
I think that my personality really started to show there.
That's wild.
And through the grade school, like even as it went on, I think it kind of was like this. I think it began my rebellion towards tradition and what people telling me I should and shouldn't do. Like that became the thing.
And who were the people telling you what you should and shouldn't do?
I mean, my parents have always been so supportive, and they love that I do art. I mean, to them, it's kind of like Conrad does art. You know what I mean?
You're already winning in that sense.
Yeah, they'll hear the highlights and they'll be like, oh, you know, they'll tell people like, oh, he does this, but I don't know if they get the full grasp of like
to this day or back then.
Even to this day. Okay. My mom literally last week, I picked her up from the airport and she said, you know, like how's work? And I was like, oh, I don't really have much work going on right now. And she dropped like a line in the best way that Asian parents do, where she was like, you know, you could get a job and like. Yeah. She was like, it's not bad to get a job with insurance.
It's just the worried parents, yeah.
You know, I'm driving. I'm like, miss you, Mom. Like, I'm so glad you're.
That's all I want to hear
from you too. I'm so glad you're home.
Yeah, I guess I could get a job.
But even in grade school, I remember very vividly, like a lot of instances where that happened, where it was like a battle against authority, a battle against tradition. Like there was this one mom while I was running for student council. I don't know why I always think about her, but she was like, her son was running. Right. And at the time I was a little entrepreneur too. I was having, you know, this third graders talk to other third graders, the fifth graders. Like I had like a little street team.
A little network. Okay.
Before MySpace, like MySpace street team. And she tried to mad dog me. She came up to me and she said, Conrad, aren't you nervous for your speech?
Mom?
She was trying to psych me out. And I remember this in 7th grade. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, a lot of people get nervous when they talk. And then I remember thinking about that and saying, well, I don't get nervous. And so since then, I don't really get too nervous. Like I almost like biohacked the mindset of it.
Reverse psyched yourself out.
Exactly. Right? And so I do that a lot. I feel like there's a lot of things that.
But would you label that fake it till you make it?
I don't know. Maybe. I've heard of that sentiment.
I forgot what someone else called it, something else. Not ignorant, but something like something confidence. But yeah,
I've been using mind.
Interesting.
I've been using a lot of mind over matter whenever I talk about that a lot. And I know it annoys a lot of my friends because they're like, no, that's just not how it works. I'm like, see, but like even saying that it doesn't work like that. That ounce of doubt could affect.
I tell people that when they start off a conversation with saying, I'm bad at names, sorry.
Right.
It's like, don't say that. Like, try.
It's also, it's very easy, and I think I'm aware of it now as an adult, to constantly apologize. I just feel like as like a really traditional, I grew up in the Catholic church and Catholic high school too, where you had to wear a tie every day. And if you didn't have your top buttoned, you'd get detention, which was called justice under God. So it was like a serious thing, even though it's like a top button. So it was always like this thing where it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that. But instead, just changing it to being like, thank you for your patience or something, you know, because when it comes to art, I think that when you're in your flow state, you can have no hesitation. It's the reason why I think I'm getting the work that I have been getting is the speed of it. And the fastest you could be is when you really have the least amount of doubt.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't question every brushstroke. You've done it so much that it becomes second nature. And I'm that's what my constant goal is. Even if it's like a project that maybe I'm not the most excited for.
Right.
I use it as an opportunity to be like, can I sharpen this skill, that skill of being okay that everything's not perfect.
Yeah, it's very optimistic of you.
Thank you.
The ability to maintain perspective, right? So like I ask people all the time, like, what are your ingredients for fulfillment? And the traditional ones are things like, if you've heard of the Ikigai concept.
Yes.
Yeah. So things like fair compensation. Do you enjoy it? Are you good at it? Are you being of service? But when I asked this question to someone else, they said something that helps me maintain perspective and context. And that's been an issue in recent times of overgeneralizing someone's entire identity based off some trigger words or some some little facts here and there.
As if humans are that simple, where it's like, you are only this.
Right.
Like I am only hustle culture.
Right.
It's like, that's not how the world works.
Right.
Maybe in some people's mind. But it's not really, I think, a good blueprint for longevity.
I'm feeling it right now. I've noticed like things slipping left and right, and but
do you think that's more of just time,
being
overworking, or what do you?
It's probably a combination of being spread too thin versus not being as intentional as I could be. I try to be, but there's probably room for improvement as far as like minimizing scroll time on Instagram or whatever, DMing people like Conrad on Instagram.
Yeah, you shouldn't have reached out to him.
So yeah, it's just like I don't know. There's areas where I can just like, okay, stop this and do this, and you can feel better about it after,
But at the same time too, do you ever have did you think you'd be doing this 5 years ago? Do you know what I mean? Do you ever have like a talk with past you? I do that a lot.
And it always comes back to gratitude. I personally, I'm sure you do too, like live with no expectations of anyone else, but the highest for yourself, right?
100%.
And when I eventually asked people to come on, and it used to be more like frivolous, like, do you want to come on? You want to come on? But it's just like, just keeping an eye on how people interact with the world and like what kind of work they're putting out. Even after building rapport with someone, you can't be mad if you don't get the answer you're looking for. And Francis and I are trying to work on a live podcast on this very concept of fulfillment. But we need more brainstorming sessions, and I 100% agree. It's like, you don't want to half-ass something. You want to make it concrete before you set a date and things like that. So when you don't take things personally. The
hardest thing to do for some people.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because as a creative, you're putting your soul into this stuff.
Right. It's really easy for a creative to feel like the universe is only this room and this painting and this everything.
Right.
So it's hard. And I've heard this awesome quote, because I went to school for traditional painting, but I graduated with like digital specialization, which I was the first ever digital specialization in my school in Chicago.
Like, what do you mean first? Like, how big was your class?
It was just tradition. So I went to the American Academy of Art, where it's a really highly technical focused school.
Okay.
So they teach you the drawing skills, the painting skills, right? And they were just kind of on the cusp of moving into now like what is now known as entertainment design.
Okay.
I didn't really have a medium at the time. I was just the guy who won that Earth Day T-shirt contest, a couple city sticker contests, and then like I drew for the high school paper.
Oh, cool.
Right. So that was all I really knew. So in terms of, I was also practical, where I'm going to art school, but like I need to have a way to like keep myself afloat after this is all done. You know, it's extremely expensive. And so I begged them while I was taking these digital classes to like make an actual major out of this. And I pleaded my case, and they were like, yeah, that makes sense. So it's really cool.
Do you go back and teach these days?
I would love to. I originally, before I wanted to become an artist, I wanted to teach.
Which is another transferable skill.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's cool because I don't know, my first job ever was a day camp counselor.
Okay.
So I found that I really love working with kids and younger people. Like I would love to be a professor.
Yeah.
And I actually went back to talk to my illustration teacher, Rich Krishka. And he told me, like, I was like, hey, Rich, I'm thinking about going to my master's right away, become a professor. And he told me, do not do that right now. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, while you're getting work, while you're doing what you are, like, you've been wanting to do this, as if you're hot, just keep going until, like, that will always be here. But it was so precious, like, having freelance work and seeing that, like, you have work coming in. Yeah. And I think a lot of the times people forget where they are.
Okay.
And how really lucky that the situation that's in, the gratitude part of it.
Right.
There's some times where it's like I'm on an all-nighter or 3-4 projects at once.
Right.
And it's really easy to be like, oh gosh, I just don't want to do this. I just want to watch some TV or do whatever. And then I have that conversation with my younger self where it's like, dude, let's just make up, right? This is Time Magazine or something. Like, you would kill for this. You wouldn't be able to sleep waiting for this job. So like it kind of settles you down. Like now all these little things, they really don't matter as much because there's a version of you and it's still you, right? Who now has the skills. Like you used to yearn for this kind of work, but now you're finally able to do it. So it really helps me to like set me up to always show up at the best I can be when it's game time.
Which is more than half the battle is showing up. And what I was alluding to earlier of like when you're trying to achieve like GOAT status and you have to be all in like 100%, it's one thing when you sacrifice things from your own life. And I'm speaking just from recently, like Justine, my fiance, has shared that like I have put her on the back burner from all the things I'm juggling. And I'm glad she like kind of expressed it. And it helped me maintain perspective of like what's really important. And so I understand that feeling of like getting up super early before the sun is up or staying a little later to get something done. And she's usually very understanding of that. But when it starts feeling like that you're not close to someone, even if you're in the same bed, and Jay Shetty said that recently, of like you can still not feel close even if you're laying in the same bed.
100%.
And it means, it hit home when I heard that.
Sure.
And it helped. It's like, well, what's really important? And I know a lot of people, like as we're getting older, they're planning roots, homes, families, and I don't know. And Lawrence is a great example of still finding that balance. Lawrence Dunning. So yeah, and like you said earlier, it's very different for everyone.
It is, and it's I think a lot of people think you have to be at 8+ all the time. Where I really think if you did C effort every day, you'll actually get further. So like maybe you can't be the 100% partner that you'd like to be, right? But as long as there's the effort there, that's really what matters. Like you don't want a lot of those F days where it's like you're not doing anything, right? So my fiance Alexa, hi Alexa, she's an artist too. So I'm fortunate enough she understands that like when I'm in this room and she's in that room, we are just like in our own universes.
Wow.
So that's very rare. But at the same time, that's actually why I've recently looked into getting a studio. So now I'm in a studio space in Ukrainian Village.
Nice.
Because I needed that separation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd feel so bad just like drawing on a
like
deadline.
having an office space at home is not the same.
It's not the same, and I love my office space at home. It's just like leaving.
Yeah. The act and the process of getting ready and leaving.
And it's just this is new. Like I used to just be like, dude, yeah, but you'd save so much money just working from home, or like, oh, I don't have to travel in traffic. Is it weird? I like traffic now.
It depends on how long it is. Like
Right.
I used to have a longer commute. I live in Pilsen too,
Okay.
and this commute is like a 5 to 10 minute drive.
Beautiful.
But I don't get to listen to podcasts anymore, and I can't just have it in the background. I really have to kind of pay attention to it. So like commutes were my opportunity to listen.
Right.
So anytime I have a long drive, like I'll put a podcast on. So I miss it for that. Why do you like the long drives or like commutes?
Well, what I've been trying to do is actively talk to people who I want to talk to on the drive home.
Oh, okay.
So little check-ins. It's been a lot of artists lately, but it's even like my brothers, who one of them has 2 kids now, and it's just to touch base. I'm now also making a thing with my friends where it's like, guys, we're seeing each other once a month.
I feel the same way.
At least. And so I've been using that time to sometimes even sit in silence to just chill. But mostly I've been calling people. Like the second I've got it ready to go.
Old school.
Yeah, just to call them. And I know a lot of people don't like talking on the phone, but growing up, that was like where I learned how to like make conversation. Like my 3 best friends growing up were women. Like they were just girls, and we would just talk, and I would actively listen.
Right.
And I missed that practice so much. And so I tried to do that on my drives home or my drives there. Even if it's 15 minutes, it's amazing how much quality conversation you can get.
And because not many people do it, it's like a delightful surprise.
Oh, and
Conrad's calling me.
And I love it too, because I know the culture now, right? It's like they'll look at it and it's like, I'm not going to answer that. I'll just send a text. That's fine. I'm just going to keep calling. Because I want to talk, right? So
it's honestly much faster. Like if you're in a texting zone and you're just back and forth, it's like, all right, I'm just gonna call.
I also am not getting better at texting. It's like I'm doing the talk to text, and then it's just I'll send instantly. Like that's my thing.
What about voice messages?
I haven't really gone into voice messages.
I know one person, and I'll do it back if they do it to me, but it is kind of faster.
Huh. I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, if someone like really can't pick up the phone,
Right.
but like you can't really text inflection points and pauses, so like the voice message is like the next best thing.
Yeah, some people are so good at emojis and stuff, dude. The amount
memes are a language. Yeah,
I only use the crying emoji, like the crying laugh, and I'm like, this means everything.
Yeah,
like he's crying and laughing.
Everything is LOL.
I'm the guy who's like, LOL, hey, good to see you. LOL, did you see that basketball game last night? LOL.
Yeah.
I'll use like 19 LOLs. And I know people don't want to say it, but like I'm not the best texter, so let's talk on the phone.
Hey, it's something,
right?
It's something.
Exactly.
Even good friends and sometimes, in my experience, more often family, just lose touch. And pandemic didn't help, but
No.
Even afterwards, like it feels like a two-way street. Like it has to be like, oh, now it feels one-sided. I feel like I'm always calling, I'm always nagging.
Sure.
Especially if you set something up and they keep bailing.
Oh gosh.
But at what point do you give up? Do you ever give up? It's like, at what point do you give up?
I mean, it happens a lot to me when you can only do so much. And I feel like with a lot of younger artists who reach out to me, I will be like, check out some of these books, check out some of these YouTube channels, and it's like, I'm giving you as best of a blueprint as I can.
Yeah.
But again, going back to expectation, if they don't watch it or whatever, and then they're asking the same questions.
Come on, yeah.
I don't know how much more I can do for you. And as you know, as you're spread too thin, at some point, that part of your time is almost like you can't do that as much as you'd like to. You can't help as much people who don't want to help. Like it's pulling teeth.
Francis, I don't know if he listens to these, but he just talked about how he used to be very boundary-ish, like saying no to easily saying no.
Sure.
And then recently like started opening back up and allowing serendipity to occur. And yeah, so it's like you pick and choose and you learn, it's like if this part of your life is busy and it needs your attention for other things, like
that's true.
Draw the boundaries, right?
And I think too, it's especially when you reach somehow, in like my mind, it's still crazy to me that people want to hear what I have to say about something that I'm still figuring out, right? Asking for my advice. There's also going back to like that whole kind of transaction, right? A genuine transaction versus being like, I want something from you. All right, thank you for that. Right. And I'm sure Francis gets, I'm sure a lot of business owners get it, entrepreneurs, artists, because everyone wants to know the secret.
There's
a lot of people who want to know.
Here's the secret. The secret is, and this is like a superpower, because like you can go really good with it and you can go really bad with it. But similar to, and Naval Ravikant said this, but like similar to money, relationships compound over time, like interest. And so the evil people can go with that and start gaming the system and gaming people and just like manipulating people. And I sometimes, if I feel disingenuine in a relationship or in an interaction, I'll pause and reflect. But like, you can easily take that as far as you want to go to get what you want. Like evil me could have been like, we follow each other for such and such, just so I can get him on this podcast. But what am I don't know. And then the other side is like, what do you get from this? Like, besides becoming friends or like getting to understand where Conrad comes from. Like, I don't know. It messes with my head at times. And if I feel like I'm going down that path, I kind of just pause and just like, well, if it doesn't feel right, it's not a good fit.
Yeah. It's, I am lucky enough to be in a profession where your intuition is everything. And so it's like honing your intuition and the confidence level. As soon as I start to feel that weirdness, I very much protect myself and kind of move forward, because like I said, that energy is precious. Like when you have like flow, or your muse is talking to you, right? Or you're doing whatever romanticized thing that you like to call passion, right?
Right.
The littlest thing can bump you off.
Yeah.
It's what do they call it? I was listening to The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Nice. Yep.
And resistance.
Right.
And it's I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And you can feel resistance.
Like, lean into it though. He says lean into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can feel that resistance where it's like, this person doesn't have the best intentions in mind for myself.
Yeah.
And so I just have to.
So does that come from like being burned personally before?
Yeah. I mean, I've been burned. I'm a pretty positive dude.
Yeah.
And I love to help.
Forgiving and everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've been burned many times where even last year, and you know, obviously I'm not going to drop names, but even last year, it was two or three gigs that I had that were the biggest losses of my career. Biggest, like the most money, the most time.
In the sense that you did the work and just they didn't meet their end.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like I process things in terms of like, okay, let's take the positive spin on it. But what it does is it just makes you battle hardened a little bit. It helps you to make better decisions. It hones that, because there were inklings of your intuition being like, is this an all-in thing, or is this is this something I should be wary of?
I mean, they don't teach you about contracts growing up. They don't like you said this in other interviews of like, they don't teach you about business or anything like that.
They
like
don't teach you
taxes.
Yeah, they don't even teach you concept really in that kind of school, so it's very much learning as you go. But now I do have a lawyer, and I do have, now I've learned, right? Like, no one comes out the gate just like, I am business savvy.
No,
I know exactly which clients, and I know like clients to work for, and I know how much to charge for them. I see that's a lot of the questions I get is like, how do you know? It's like, dude, you just ask people and do your research and figure out what
you're going to do a lot of projects for less money in the beginning, and you build a portfolio, and then eventually you come to a sweet spot where if you feel like you're not getting gigs, then maybe lower your prices a little bit.
Right. And I can't suggest enough Jessica Heish's PDF of the dark art of pricing. Dark art of pricing.
What industry is she in? Or
she's
just marketing in general?
She's a graphic designer.
Okay.
Does a lot of typography for the biggest companies, and it's just like, plain and simple, I have been doing my own research, talking to the top people, and this is how much this and this and this and this and this is. And then it's a small digital download. It's
dark art of marketing?
Dark art of pricing, I
pricing,
believe.
okay.
And it just, I remember I was watching it with Alexa and a couple artists where I was like, maybe we should listen to this. And we were all just had the same sentiment where it's, wow, we're making way less money than we we probably should. And it's just, again, it's perspective, man. Like, you don't know what you don't know,
I think
man.
when you first start out, you might think about what it takes to smoothly transition, because
Yes.
I remember you were in screen printing and it's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I think that's how most entrepreneurs do it.
100%.
You don't want to cut yourself off from your source of income completely, but figure out what you need to keep food on the table and a roof over your head, and then eventually figure out what it would cost, everything from the front end to the back end.
You reverse engineer.
And then you can start with, reverse engineer it, and you can start with your hourly rate. But when you get good, it's not so much about your hourly rate anymore as it is the value that you're providing.
100%.
Like, what if your client is making millions off of you and you just charge hourly rate? Like, oh my God.
I have a few clients who I work with pretty consistently, and the impressions they get alone is worth, so it's hard. You very much have to find some kind of balance
with like, oh, I'm grateful we still get to do this,
Sure.
right? With like, I deserve more.
Exactly. And the thing is like, that is such a prevalent issue.
Yeah.
I feel like with a lot of artists
Oh yeah.
now, it's for some reason it's like, what do I charge or something? And I used to be very, very timid. I'd say, what is the status quo? I will charge that. I will deliver way above, and I'm just going to build my client list. But it wasn't until around 3 years ago where I just started saying F it. And I started just the FOMO and the imposter syndrome was just slowly diminishing with each dream gig that I was like, wait, I said I was going to get this, and I got it, and I did it. So it just starts to diminish and diminish. And so when now I get pitched gigs, I would be like, wait a second, what do I think it's going to cost? Okay, I'm going to double it. And then I would double.
Wow.
Because that's how low I was charging.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't double everything.
Yeah. I was like,
And
okay.
then at some point too, there was one gig where I just did the math, global marketing thing, national world coverage, and then all of a sudden you take that double, and then I don't know what came into me in the negotiation room, and I quadrupled it.
Hell yeah.
And I remember being like, I'm not afraid.
How many back and forths did that?
Two
back and forths.
And so the second time is when I was like, it's this. And I remember saying this, just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
And I will touch on working with those clients, like what that's like later on. But I threw it out there and they didn't even hesitate.
That's amazing.
Didn't even hesitate. And it's just re-instilled in my brain.
It's a reframe.
Yes, exactly. You're worth what it's kind of like love. You get the love that you think you deserve. And it's the same thing. If you want this client, can you, without question, say that I provide this amount of value to them? Because if the answer is no, throwing out a 4 times quadruple, rate is not gonna. That's not gonna do anything. You can just like get lucky. You're not gonna get lucky with that.
You have to know your clients, and are they more of a quantitative kind of person? Like, do they look at things analytically, or do you have to speak on intangible value that you provide to?
Sure. And knowing your client, yes, very important, like doing the research.
Yeah.
But I almost think it's more important to know yourself as an artist. Like, don't bullshit yourself.
Sure.
I think that's what I tell people is things changed when I started being ultra honest with myself.
Okay.
Like, I would do studies every day, digital studies, because my school didn't have like the most developed digital
What do you mean by digital studies?
So I would do kind of like a sketchbook, but I would do them digitally via Photoshop at the time and just do it for myself. So I'd have a list of things that I sucked at. Feet, armor. And then I would do them, and then I would critique myself. And critiquing yourself is all about being honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who will be like, oh man, this is great. And then you'll ask a question and they'll know the answer. And I'm like, well, why didn't you change this thing then? It's a very like foundational fine art way of thinking about it.
Okay.
If the hand is bad on that drawing, it's bad, right? So when are you going to address it? Or are you just going to continually draw the same hand? So it's kind of similar to how that's transferable to how you price yourself. Are you really pricing yourself correctly? No. Well, how do you know you're not? Oh, because I think I'm worth more. Why do you think you're worth more? Because my work is this, and I've been and I've been doing this for 6 years now. Oh, so So price yourself accordingly then, right? So it's like the math actually adds up. It's more of like, how long can you stand in your own way? if you're not being honest with yourself. Like art is about being so bluntly honest with yourself, in my opinion.
A lot of things come to mind, whether it's like the resistance to take another look.
Totally. my professor used to tell me that, my watercolor professor, who was a hard ass, but he used to say, like, he'd say the amateur will have a deadline and they'll get it to a place that's pretty good and they'll hand it in. Whereas like the professional is going to see it and be like, that's okay, I'm going to do it again. Oh man, it's late now. Well, I'm just going to keep working on it. I'm going to keep working on it. Then they hand in something that's kind of pretty good, but it's 5 steps above the amateur
already. Yeah,
exactly. And it's just like framing it in that way where it's like, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Like, dude, do draft 2, do draft 3,
right?
And eventually, and I can speak from this, like, I'm not trying to like say that you become like the Flash and take super speed, but you definitely get faster at that when you critique it. You're having those mini critiques as you're painting. And so you're just like making the thing, like those changes.
What a vessel for self-awareness.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the most like self-awareness.
The most transferable
thing that is like, if you have self-awareness in art and your creative exploits, it's crazy how it's like,
because it can become an echo chamber pretty quickly.
Exactly. Okay. You only hear yourself. I always used to really actively tell myself, it's like, if you want to be a fine artist and all you do is sit in the studio and paint, your art's going to be you in a studio.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to live life. You have to make mistakes. You have to talk to people, other creatives, other things, or else you will not grow. You know, it's not just going to suddenly fall into your lap. You're working with the MBA.
Right.
I can literally tell you the day I left my 9 to 5, right? I saved like, I think like $10,000 or something. And I was like, this is all I need to live. I lived with my parents.
Outside or in a bus?
And I was like, I was like, this is it. And I was like, I'm going to live with my parents until I get this done. And I did my research and I attacked clients that I knew they would not deny my work. Like I was like looking at their content.
Right.
I did a little content marketing towards the marketers.
Smart.
I was hoping. And so I was like, boom, boom, boom. Like they like Steph Curry. They like Isaiah Thomas. Right then, Cleveland was doing some stuff. And I just attacked and I attacked and I attacked. Eventually, until I got my first job with Bleacher Report. Mm-hmm. And so they were like, do you know Chance the Rapper? And I was like, I'm from the Chicagoland area. So yeah. And they're like, oh, this is a perfect fit. And then from there, you know, I was doing that piece. And after it went through, he won 3 Grammys instead of the brief was 2.
Yeah.
And then after that, they were like, could you?
Or you already did it though, right?
I already did it because I knew I was anticipating what they would say. And then that's just how it starts. All of a sudden it was that, and it went quote unquote viral, which virality is a whole different thing. I think a lot of people really think that the careers are based on virality.
Okay.
Whereas I think people who get viral are just doing work all the time. They have more of a higher chance of getting viral.
So it's quantity.
100 quantity and quality. So my friend Alex Solis,
right.
He's an awesome artist. He was kind of like a mentor to me when I was leaving my job. Showed me that it was possible. He's been viral left and right with his series and things like that. And it's funny because he wasn't ever thinking about it. He was just constantly producing. He was constantly executing creative ideas. And so it's like, how many songs does like Snoop Dogg have?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this isn't just like a one-time thing. And again, we talk about longevity. How many paintings have I done in these 6 years? My 3rd big job was with Nathan Love for the NBA 2019 finals. And it was after Spider-Verse. So it was like this whole...
Oh my God.
That was like my dream gig. And it was like Spider-Verse changed everything.
Animation.
All of a sudden, everyone thought art would be cool with other aspects, like other cultural phenomena like basketball, which has never really been a thing. And I tell this to people all the time. You want to talk about quantity? I did 75 illustrations in 3 months.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was a lot. And one of my favorite concept artists, I used to go to these workshops in LA from this company called Massive Black. Okay. And one of their head concept artists, whose name was Wes Burt, he's one of the head designers for Marvel Cinematic Universe. And he would say, a lot of you guys, I can tell you haven't had to like create 100 gladiators in a weekend on a deadline. I could look at your work for 5 seconds and see that you haven't done you haven't been pushed to that boundary. And so like, I will know if you have what it takes to like be hired in this industry. And so it's kind of like with that, it's like being honest with yourself. How many iterations have you done? How many paintings, like how many times have you tried to work with the team that you want to work with? Has it just been like a couple, 3, 4, 5, and they haven't seen your tag? Or is it,
or what if they saw it and just like, not good enough yet? So you just got to keep iterating, right?
You got to remember, these creative directors and art directors are people. And not only that, every team is looking to be edgy, and every team is looking to, right? Every company wants to be something different.
At the time, there weren't many people that combined animation and sports.
No. I was a part of a pretty unique team. I did all the 2D elements, and 75. I'll never forget it, man. I was living in my parents' attic, and I was doing 12 to 16 hour days for 3 months straight.
Now, what device is this on? An iPad or like?
I
know there are like special.
Yeah, so I use a Wacom
a
Wacom tablet for a longest time, because the Cintiq was just way on my price range.
Sure.
So that was cool, because I'm glad I did that, because I didn't go to the big boy Cintiq, is what people
I haven't even heard of that one. Yeah.
It's about a 20.
Is it a table? Like it looks like a table?
Yeah, it's a big screen. Mine's 24 inches, and you draw directly on it.
Amazing.
Which really helps with in the way of you do
wear
line
that
art.
special like black glove thing on your pinky.
So for being a sweaty human, I actually don't use the black glove, because my goal with my the way I treat digital is to keep it as traditional as possible.
Okay.
And so like, I don't like to do too much like fancy stuff, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I do. There is definitely some dark magic that happens in Photoshop that you can learn through like other digital painters. But for me, myself, it's like anything that takes me out of that like same flow state from when I was in kindergarten, drawing is going to inhibit me. It's,
I see. Yeah.
It's going to stop me from all these other questions. I'm going to sit there and I'll be like, Control T, V. Oh wait, what was that filter? It's like, no, just paint it. Just paint it. Just paint it, and through the studies you get faster. Suddenly you're not thinking about this reflective surface and this shadow and this reflected light. You're like boom, 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 boom. And when you do 75 illustrations in 3 months, you will get slightly better.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Like naturally you'll get better, and then you'll probably learn systems. Like you've put systems and shortcuts in place.
100%. That's everything is based on that. Like I definitely have my own way I work, and in my mind I'm like, I could share this now, right? For so long, I think for artists you feel like
you need to protect, like gatekeep, like your secrets
in a way, but it's also like so many artists are like, dude, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah. Like
why would anyone pay me $5 to know my tutorial? And it's crazy, is because like, again, you only know what you know, and this is normal to you. To everyone else, you don't know how many people are going to take just one little inkling of your tutorial and make a career.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. And then the other way, if you're still thinking competitively, is like they're still not in your head. Like that's just one tiny aspect of what you do, and they're still going to be behind.
Sure. I've heard Boss Logic talk about this a lot too, how it's just like there are going to be people who are trying to emulate you. And the amount of emulation is pretty staggering when it comes to, because I was probably one of 10 people who was doing basketball illustrations or sports illustration back then. And it's just like that. At the end of the day, you're the only Conrad. Like I'm the only me, and so I can't really worry about what they're doing. And honestly, the teacher in me is like, take the skills. If I take the brushes, you're going to use them in a different way, right? The camera here, everyone's going to look from a different angle and do something differently. So competitive nature is like, I don't know. For me, again, I think a lot of times all of us have the tools to be quote unquote successful.
Oh my God,
but no one, almost less than 1% actually takes it and like
do the work,
do the actual like commitment. Right?
I caught up with a guy who's he's a magician, and he's been to like,
I saw a clip.
He's been to like 2 of my events.
That was crazy.
Brought him to like a Thanksgiving and then a holiday party. But like George, shared a book from one of his mentors, Asi Wind, and Asi Wind was selling his stuff for $150 in this really beautiful book. And when George came over, I'm like, George, I have that book, but I haven't cracked it open yet. Dude. Right? So you have the tools and the secrets, and it's like, I just don't. I'm so busy.
And it's hard because again, it's like, dude, the lessons, the amount of times I've just like, I feel like I'm giving liquid gold to people, right? Just like I'm giving you everything.
Yes.
It doesn't mean shit unless you internalize it in your own way. Like
Yes.
all throughout my life, people have been like, that stuff's weird, or that teacher is hard, or that, man, digital painting is weird. And then I take these classes and I have these teachers and I go to these events. They're nothing like anyone explained. Again, it's like almost, I feel like everything is like erasing the doubt, the imposter syndrome that is very rampant in creative art. Because it's like, dude, you start to realize that everyone's just trying to, it's either like it might be a projection, or like it's hard, but like what's hard, right? Like hard for them is not going to be hard for me. It could be different. You know, I could have 6 arms and like, you know, sword fighting wouldn't be
Sure.
right. It's
right.
It's all relative to how you look at it.
Yeah.
And I try to sometimes even create a character in my own mind where it's like, if I know something hard is coming, I will do the same thing where I was with that woman who tried to psych me out, and I'll be like, well, I'm not going to be what you want me to be. I'm going to kind of not play a character, and so I can get this job done.
Well, that's being a professional.
You have to do it. Whatever trick in the book you can pull out as a professional, as long as you have integrity, really all the other professionals are going to be like, that's respect. And honestly, that's what I really love is like these guys who I've been following for years, and we're all peers now. You know, I'm not faking it anymore, because strangely enough, it's like if I've failed so many times and I've been working so much that like I actually am doing what I wanted to do. Now it's about what's next.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
And then that whole world, that whole microcosm of like scaling. Oh goodness gracious. You know, that's hard enough to think of.
As you get older, at least for me, it's just like you get older and you're finding ways to buy back your time.
Time is precious.
And some freedom. And, you know, with this class, I'm grateful that I have a great team, this EMT class, that can teach. It's slow wedding season right now, but when it's busy, I'm lucky that they can run this without me so I can go shoot a wedding, right? It's like stuff like that. So like Weather and Naval talks about this as well. It's like scaling through manpower, scaling through the internet, like leveraging the internet, whether it's merch on Threadless,
sure,
right, or any e-commerce shop, or sure. I don't know how deep you went into NFTs, but like,
oh, it was deep, man.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends who did very well.
Okay.
And then a lot of friends who didn't. So
okay.
I was definitely really in there.
Is it coming back?
I mean, the art aspect of it, it's tough. I feel like as an outsider looking in, man, there was so many projects that I thought would have been pretty cool. But almost every single large project is linked with some freaking butthole who is just taking advantage of, you know what I mean? Like, that's what it seems like, is like this.
Like, is there that feeling that they're going to pull the rug out from under that person and just dump it? Or
in a space where there's so much freedom and so unexplored territory, it seems like the people who are
no integrity,
taking the steps in it are the people who want to take advantage of people. You know what I mean? There's not enough good projects, in my opinion, that are making mainstream. That right? Everyone knows Bored Apes. Everyone knows some of these big ones, Azuki. But it's just like, there should be more like projects that actually, like, from beginning to fruition, right to the end of it. And there's not even an end with a lot of these projects. It's like you continually make money, right? Can there just not be some kind of like millionaire
can it be pure?
whale?
Yeah, I know.
Can there not be some dude or
so in your perspective? I've never really talked to, like, Francis hasn't been on again to talk about NFTs, but have you, like, what could NFTs do for people that got involved? Because I know Side Practice started using NFTs in that way to, like, gain access to certain things. I know Gary Vaynerchuk does that as well.
Sure.
Is there anything like that, or anything different from that? Like, what are some use cases for sure. NFTs besides just buying art that appreciates, right?
Exactly. I see it as an artist as the amount of artists that I saw who switched over, the utility. I'm seeing it from an artist standpoint where a fine artist, right, makes paintings for, let's say, 3 to 6 months. They bring it to a gallery in the traditional sense.
Mm-hmm.
They have a show, which is kind of based on how well it's advertised in the gallery or to yourself. And no matter what you do, 50% of it is to the gallery, no matter what.
Is it always that high?
40 to 50.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
generally. So let's say if it's in New York, you got to pay for shipments. You got to, unless the gallery is trying to, so you understand this whole like,
Yeah.
why-
Where do you stand in comparison to the gallery and stuff like that?
exactly.
Yeah.
And again, that's just where you start. But with NFTs, what was super cool from the get-go was the ideology that it was like, you sell a painting piece and you get income from it residually forever every time it gets sold. You would then get like, I forgot what it was, like 15% every time it's resold. So if someone's Beeple, right, sold his piece for, what was it, like 35 million and then resold again later down the road, he would still continue to make money. Like imagine if that kind of patronage was like that for Da Vinci or any of these families, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where, for me as an artist, I was like, that's super exciting because it gives artists another outlet to like make money that's not dependent on a company or something. It's dependent on the work and how, because each artist is going to appreciate if they keep working, right? You're going to make more work, your work's going to change, and it's almost like you're buying stock in an artist.
I like that.
It's super cool. I thought that was like a super like unique thing. But now what it's become is, I mean, you've seen these PFPs, you've seen the almost regurgitation of like just these, especially with the rise of AI.
Explain PFP.
It's like a project where, like Bored Apes is a perfect example where it's like it's the same base but like the eyes change or the right. It's not exactly what you would call like time consuming art for what like artists like me, a traditional artist who turned digital.
So why does it generate so much?
I mean, I think it's kind of saying a weird message where it's like, I don't think the art sometimes even matters.
Oh my God.
Exactly. And so I think that's why a lot of artists and a lot of creatives have kind of like, no, that's not cool. But like when it first came out, in my mind and a lot of other artists, they're like, wait a second. So I'm working hard on these paintings.
Because it's moving away from art and more so money making.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
You're telling me that there's a way that I can make a living off one painting, and people buy it direct to consumer, and I'm still making money even if
Residually, right?
Residually, that's super cool. I think that would be an amazing utility. But again, is
it too ideal? Like unreal? Is it too unrealistic?
It might be. But these galleries and these groups, everyone was trying to get in. Like you would submit your work, right?
Yeah.
You don't always get in.
And do you have to pay to submit?
No.
Oh.
So a lot of these places like Foundation, for example, now you need an invite from someone who's already in Foundation.
Oh.
But again, it's like, is that just another form of gatekeeping with these other galleries? Because then there's also OpenSea where anyone can post. And so you would see what was happening was a lot of art theft. And that's what really shut down a lot of artists really going in, is people could find work online that they saw on Twitter, download it, and just post it as the artist.
Mm-hmm.
And because your username, Homer Simpson 6969, you know, like the tracing back to you is really hard because you could have multiple wallets. Like it's such like the Wild West when it comes to it. So I think that like the way that I was thinking of it, because I do romanticize a lot of like,
because I mean, wasn't one of the things about crypto is the fact that it's like always recorded?
Yes, the blockchain
on the blockchain.
Yeah.
It's so wild.
It would be awesome if it was almost like they came out with it and there was these like galleries that were like, all right, well, we're just gonna like curate our artists. And it's going to be like, just like how regular galleries are, but like the artist gets this much cut. And it was like that. Like there'd be the people who got into this kind of like art releases were celebrities. And I remember I was on one of these things and I was like, Steve Aoki's having a drop. And I was like, when the fuck did Steve Aoki start painting? You know what I mean? Like I was like, wait, what? And there's no way that I'd be able to like get into that like gallery because I couldn't get in. You kind of had to have like a prestige, and the projects are good. I'm not trying to slam Steve Aoki. Even if you're listening, Steve, you know, I'm not trying to, I'm just saying that like, it almost still was the same issue of how artists can't get into galleries now.
Interesting.
Right. There was still,
but they're trying to protect the integrity of it, right? Is that the purpose of gatekeeping, or?
I think so. But in the same time, I mean, how much money do you think a Steve Aoki drop is going to make, dude? Like, think about that. Like, even regardless of what is, Paris Hilton was a huge proponent of like NFTs. Like, everyone was in on it except a lot of the people who were like me, who kind of were like, let me see how this goes first. And I think you kind of missed that boat of the
that's the risk you take.
It's the meteoric rise. But I've seen many artists who overnight after a couple months or weeks make thousands, millions of dollars.
Right.
And you think about that. It's like this dude has a family and does the same stuff. And because he's in this market, that this thing that's not available to like to any artist really. And like, it was so mind boggling. And so you can't help but be like, should I get into this? But in the same way that Instagram isn't made for like fine artists to really advertise themselves, I don't think that NFTs are really made, like the space right now is made for people who can't stick with a project for that long. Like if you're in an NFT project, I don't think people understand, like, do you use Discord at all?
Yeah.
Okay. So like you have your own Discord, you have your own following. You have to like constantly feed that machine and the audience there. And it's a smaller number. So it's like quality, right? But like once your project's done, that's not it. Like you're in it. You have to continually push.
Which when you start is ultimately what you wanted.
That's
you
what you
wanted a
wanted.
community. Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, you know, I just think that there's a lot of people who find any way to take advantage. You know, I've heard of drops that have been like these awesome drops and then like the art gets stolen and then someone drops it somewhere else. Or, you know, I've heard of, there's so many rug pulls and things like that where I think it just kind of scares off the general media. Like
Absolutely.
like general people out of it.
You don't have faith in it yet.
Yeah. And photographers, there wasn't really a huge rise really in too much photography in there. People tried to release albums on it, but it just didn't really catch wind. So I just don't know if the technology's there. But I think Logan Paul was like the first project that I saw that was based in photography that made like
I remember those Polaroids.
The Polaroids, which were, I mean, I like the YouTube video. It was like a 30-minute video of like,
well, it's cut really well.
Super. It's done very well. And I was like, this
but
is,
you get something you get that tangible thing too. But like you're
Yeah.
also getting, or for some of them, like access to maybe him or you know what an experience.
right. And you see the ripples of the NFT that rise now on Instagram. You know, you see creators now have subscription based, and you also see creators that have the channels. Have you seen the channels now? And I'm like, dude, I'm like talking directly to my people.
Right.
I'm not allowed to use it yet, but I'm like, this is so interesting how, especially like how they focus on video now too. And there's a lot of artists who are like, dude, can I just paint and post and not worry about video? And I'm like, okay, yes, you can. But if you're going to be on the platform, you have to know that they are going to prioritize.
Got to play the game.
And exactly. And that's kind of the thing that's as transferable to even illustration. You have to do what you have to do. Like at the time, I was just posting artwork that I thought looked cool with a concept that I knew a client would want. That's a golden.
The one I posted today of it's like creating a GIF out of like like Thanos Michael. Like,
yes.
like that is like very cool too.
Right.
I'm sure you've done like a time lapse of like the process. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to break the wheel to do it.
One thing I heard that made a lot of sense is like, imagine how you would be on the platform if you had 100K. Like
100K followers.
And like you have the responsibility to interact with that community.
100%.
Whereas like when you got 1,500, 2,000, it's like, I'm a ghost.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm not trying to like, I don't want to be like sad boy over here, but it's like even when you have gigs that may have a larger reach, such as the Snoop Dogg Eminem music video I was a part of last year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Exactly. I did it and I was like, man, this was 3 months, 4 months of hard work for a 30-second, right? Like you didn't even see it. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, I've been stuck at 13,000 followers for almost a year and a half.
Okay.
But again, also knowing going into it that your followers don't exactly equate your wealth, right?
Yeah.
I may have 13,000, but how many of them are art directors? How many of them are people who actually really support my work? And I think that's how a lot of artists have to see it. It's quality, man. It's, yes, the number is super cool.
Yeah.
But it really is quality.
One person that I know in real life that exponentially shot up, he makes those Chicago reels, like hyperlapses and time lapses of Sky Kim. So we went to UIC together, and he was
cool.
part of this EMT program. But and then he's a firefighter by day, and then in his free time, he's actually going to be our wedding photographer or wedding videographer.
Whoa, that's awesome!
It's a team of 3, but he's been crushing it. And I'm sure he has the numbers, but like it felt like within 6 months, he went from he hit 10K, and he's over 100 now. It's so mind blowing.
10 months.
Yes, it's so fast. And the last time I saw him, he like helped me install the AC in here. It's so wild. But you're doing something that has mass appeal. Whether it's the editing or the color or the fact that he's showing Chicago and perspectives of Chicago that
Sure.
by now there are a lot of drone photographers and videographers, but maybe he has his own spin on it. And then collaborations, which you're very familiar with, but collaborating with those huge influential Chicago, tourist accounts, like you have to be very self-aware of how to navigate this game.
Right. And I see it very much as, dude, it's the same exact thing from when I first started. It's just different names. You just have to be creative in how you show your content. Like, it's the same
without
thing.
being manipulative and gamey,
You gotta
like
have,
salesy or gamey.
You gotta have the integrity.
Yeah,
Like I think a lot of people are turned off
'Cause they can
by
feel that.
reels. Yeah, they can feel it because they think of reels and they think of like TikToks and they think of dancing. It's like, well, I don't want to do that. Then don't. Like, I think Gary Vee said it where he's like, you are the curator of your own fucking like page.
Yeah.
If you don't want to put it out and you think it's too cringy, then don't do it. Like, don't complain about it. Just make something that you really like. Be creative. Like, where is all the creativeness going with it? Right. Like, there has to be a way. I have a friend who went from 4,000 to 47,000 in a span of 10 months as well. And he, Chuck P Comics, great friend of mine, and he posts time lapses and he posts drawings, and then he posts like, there's value there, right? He doesn't have to appease anyone with like an algorithm. It's more of like, I'm gonna pick a cool song that I like, I'm gonna show my time lapse, and I'm just gonna be consistent with it.
That's the hardest thing, and that's what I mean by like, imagine if you had 100K, it kind of forces you to be consistent.
And I don't know if it's possible.
I don't even take my own advice. I'm just like, yeah, I know.
No, I totally get it. But I'm saying that, like, I don't know if it's also the mental struggle, and I don't know if it's possible when you have that many followers to slow down and not at least have some of their input affect you.
Definitely feels like a job at that point. Yeah.
It's gonna affect you, man. You're gonna get a lot of people who'll be like, dude, you talked to Conrad? Like, did you hear about this? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's always gonna be people who are hating on you, and it's like the more followers you get, there's that negativity increases, and it goes back to kind of how I really try to keep the positive energy like that. When I feel inspired to do a painting and I write it down and I draw it, I sketch it, that is untouchable. And it's the same thing as a creative. You have to do it. No one can stop you, because that is the rarest thing. Like, that shit doesn't come every day. And when it does, don't like give it some gravitas, like give it some meaning. Give it some meaning. What is it? Big dreams or little dreams don't have the energy to move men's minds, or something like that. It's like, it's like you have to have big dreams and big aspirations that scare you in order to do something great.
Yeah.
Like getting up and getting out of the house may be the thing that you want to do, but like, imagine you having this project you've always wanted to do and then being like, all right, I'm going to start it today. That's really like, oof, man, that's scary. But imagine 5 years from now when it's done.
I guess, and for most people, maybe the hardest part is identifying that big project, maybe?
Sure, I think so. And again, it goes hand in hand with awareness.
Yeah.
Because that in and of itself is a form of like self-actualization, where it's like, I have this thing and I want to see it to the end.
Right.
Oof, that's scary. A lot of artists, a lot of creatives are more afraid of succeeding because they know exactly what it takes. It's scary as shit to do exactly what it takes to do the formula.
Are they complaining in their mediocrity?
Probably. I think that there's a lot of anxiety and pressure that can come from knowing you have to do something.
Yeah.
Like creation. Like, again, as a painter, I could paint a million studies. Studies are actually a really big way to grow. Like, because the demographic that you're talking to are a bunch of artists who are trying to get better at, say, digital painting or drawing. Sure. But like, a lot of it could be just stay studies.
Can you imagine like you're doing your version of Bob Ross?
Trust me, I have a friend, Princess Etch, who's an Etch-a-Sketch artist. Okay. And she does the Etch-a-Sketching while watching Bob Ross with an Etch-a-Sketch.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it's freaking amazing. She's great. Hi, Jane. She's awesome. But like, again, that's a creative way. She is an Etch-a-Sketch artist. Do you think that she's sitting there being like, man, I'm an Etch-a-Sketch artist. I don't really know I can't exist in this world. No, she actually just did this thing on TikTok, which was genius, where she said, I think it's like roses or something. Like they're worth like, I forget how much, like pennies.
Okay.
And she was like, I want to see how long it would take for me to pay off my student loans doing TikTok lives. And she did it because she did it. And because she thought of a creative idea for it and no one else really does it. People were just like, oh, here's some roses. It took a while, but it was over tens of thousands of dollars.
That's hilarious. That's good for her.
I know. And you can't, and there's no excuse, right? At that point, she's in the nichest of all niche things. And all she was a good idea. And I think at the same time, now that I'm moving more into like art direction too, and like having a team and working in that regard, man, the ideas and like I said, that stuff is so precious. Like you got to hold on to it, and you got to be like, I'm gonna put a lot of energy into this.
When you say hold on to it, what do you mean? Oh, like go after it?
Yeah, like
or hide it from the.
I'm speaking more of like, you have a great idea for what you think is really cool, like series of photos maybe, but you're like, oh, that's so stupid, like, and you never do them. You just do it.
You're always gonna wonder.
You just put it out. And it's the same thing with paintings. It's like, it's easier said than done for most, but also ignorance is kind of bliss. Like if you just were to do sketches for it, it's amazing how many of those projects on the worst end, the worst thing can happen. I practiced a little.
Okay.
That's how I kind of see it. So I feel like whenever there's like even an inkling of inspiration or passion, you just have to run with it. You have to see it through. Because then what I think it was in that same book, The War of Art, was if you continually do that, you will then
incrementally get better and better.
You'll incrementally get better, and you're going to get better at the practice of execution off of inspiration. You know what I mean? Like you're practicing following through something that like, oh, this is not going to do anything, but you do it and you do it, then all of a sudden someone's going to come to you with a really great idea, and you're going to be so sharp and tuned in. Like I could do that.
Right.
I have no fear in it. And then tomorrow they're like, all right, let's start shooting, right? This project.
Yeah.
Instead of it being like months from now,
boy.
maybe is that going to happen? And that's fine. You know, we were talking before the podcast. Like I took some time off because like, again, you can't be A+ all the time.
Yeah.
So even if it's like that, as long as you move towards it, that's a win, man. That's such a
nice.
win.
That's such a grateful way to look at things.
I'm trying to
optimistic and gratitude.
Be grateful for that.
Before going too far away from NFTs, like what is your take on AI?
Oof.
Especially with digital stuff, right? It's just like with open chat, GPT.
Yeah.
ChatGPT, like how do you feel about, pulling other people's work from the internet and calling it your own, and is it really, or is anyone's art really theirs to begin? I don't know, like where do we draw the line?
For me personally, with the background, I think we even discussed here is enough background where it's like I loved video games, I love movies. I went to school for traditional painting. I learned the skills. I look at golden age illustrators, comic artists I love, video game concept artists, right? I'm totally in agreement that like you can use programs to help you ideation, but
execution.
Actually, even before that, the way that these programs are gathering these images is what's called scraping, and they're scraping without these artists agreeing to. Yeah. Right. So a lot of companies have these archives and they're just giving them out to these to these AIs. And if anyone's not seen what the AI can do, it's rather mind-blowing. And in the romantic way, and also in like the art integrity way, I think I'm interested.
It depends on what that person's using it for.
Exactly. There's a lot of people who like the way that I do my artwork is I look for references nonstop. I recreate a unique reference board and then I draw it. That is how I do it each time. It is its own thing. It is not at all like it's only referenced where it needs to be.
Yeah, not like completely plagiarized.
No. And that right there is intention. That's why my artwork will sing to clients, because it's like it's art, but I've found like a happy medium of where it can like be seen and digestible, like, right?
You look at it and people say that's Conrad's.
I mean, surprisingly somehow, right? But see, like there's the integrity there. And sometimes when I tell people that, they're like, "Oh, okay," and then they'll send me a piece of artwork, and it's just like lifeless. It's just a tracing of a tracing of a tracing. And at that point, it's just like I can already sense, like it's like I'm back in school in art critique, and I'm like, dude, you didn't really try at all here.
And how do they feel when you said that?
when I say that, they're like, well, I'm not that good at drawing, and I'm like, well, then I think you should get good at drawing because it will only help you in the future.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, well, it's going to take a long time. And I'm like,
that's this current generation's problem.
I understand it's going to take a long time. I've been drawing since kindergarten, and it does take a long time.
You know what? And that brings me to, another ingredient of fulfillment is integrity. Is like, how do you feel about yourself when you actually put out this body of work?
Oh my gosh. Nothing could. It's like I'll get emotional even thinking about it,
Only,
it's like,
if not people like, that achieved some level of mastery, like you can pinpoint that doesn't look like it's you, or could be much better. Especially you yourself should feel empty on the inside. It's like, there's something about like grinding something out and putting your heart, sweat, and tears into something that when you come out on the other side, like it's that much more rewarding.
Oh my gosh, that's what every artist, I think, is looking for in their life and in their work, is fulfillment in my work, right?
Yeah.
It's like, until you've done it, like my classes in art school were, I transferred in, so I only had studios. So from like 9 to 12 was drawing the nude model, and then 2 to 4 was photography. And then I stayed after for portrait class. And then I stayed after for like a open session. So it's just a nude model. Anyone can show up. You paint. And then I went out and drew with my friends. And so when I get a good drawing, it's like through the labor of it. It's through like the
because you've had so many bad drawings
right,
up until that
the
point.
practice.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's crazy. People who say they can't draw, I'm like, you're not drawing enough then. Like that's just how it's crazy, dude. How crazy it is to hear. If you draw a lot, you actually get really good at drawing. And going back to like the AI and everything, right? There are programs that have been created that kind of add to ideation in terms of like silhouetting. Like there was a program called Alchemy that would do like abstract shapes, and then people would make like animals and monsters for it, for like Transformers or whatever. Cool. That's sweet, right? But the scraping of it is not cool. And actually, Guillermo del Toro, for the Pinocchio movie, he had a showing in Chicago, and my friend was actually there. Moongerm, she actually messaged me his take on it because someone asked about AI.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm only interested in I'm only interested in the magic that humans can create. I'm not interested in any of that stuff. Like even a human using a digital brush is fine. But he's like, I'm only interested in what humanity can do. That's what gives movies life to him. So he's like, for me, this is what I think it's at, what it is. And I think the fine artist in me is always just going to always look for what their intention is. If it's just completely drawn and scraped from another artist, it's really, I mean, that's just the the anti-art in my mind.
Before the scrape, I agree. Before the scraping, there is an art to asking a very intentional and thoughtful question or prompt, right?
100%. That's that too.
Yeah.
There's an art in it. I haven't really messed around with it, but sometimes I'll see like photography, like the Star Wars guys, if they were in an anime, and I'm like, could someone come up with this on their own? Maybe, but I don't know. I remember there was an artist who he works for Naughty Dog, and he did a lot of stuff for Last of Us, the video game.
Nice.
And he was saying how there is no better designer than Mother Nature. And I think about it when it comes to AI. It's like there are places in the world that look like an alien planet. There are creatures that are whatever. Like, so do we really need the extra help when it's really just searching? And like, I think a lot of art is searching. Like you're just trying to search for your own voice.
It's almost like we were talking about skill stacking.
Yes.
And depending on your prompt or question, it is scraping multiple different things and kind of making an amalgamation of it and just stacking different things to come up with something new.
Sure.
In a way, right? It's just,
it is, yeah. It's such a tight line.
But you can draw the line at scraping in general is just without permission is wrong.
And that's kind of where I like to put it because I'm so in love with the process. And so to get this like result right away to me, even as
how you said it. Like
artist,
ideation is interesting. Like
ideation is cool because hey man, I'm all
to see what's possible.
Exactly. But at the same time, art is really about the process. It's about learning and having the shared experience of I am creating. Like there is a blank canvas and I am paint. Like, dude, I'm doing something. I'm creating what Conrad would think depression looks like, or like, you know, it's self-expression. Remember I said it's like a way of expressing. So when it's just like boop done, I think a lot of the art of it, the romantic part of it is taken away. Now that being said, I can totally see it being used for like
nefarious purposes.
And I don't know if you've seen the voice AIs that are coming out now
where they sound like other people. Okay. I haven't heard them, but
it's crazy.
Been aware. Okay.
Yeah. And then obviously like the deep fakes and stuff. It's pretty interesting. And I think again,
season 2 of Mandalorian was actually, or no, was it Boba Fett? I don't know when.
Oh, really?
Season 2 of Mandalorian.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Well, did you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm saying for people.
I'll just say, I mean, it's better than the season 1. I'm not even gonna say the character, but like, yeah, it was much better than season 1.
I agree. And it's just like, again, I think it goes back to intention. You know, I think if these guys were like populate these databases, you sign away, and like we can all just be a community where we're making new stuff.
Yeah,
we'd have no issues. But let's see some of the names who are big out there who are part of the big legal issue. Have you heard?
Oh, no.
Yep, there's a bunch of artists.
They're fighting back.
A bunch of artists. One of them being Carla Ortiz, who is one of the top concept artists in the world.
Where do you even begin? Who do you sue? Like, who do you go after?
Those companies, because I believe, if I'm not
the AI companies.
Yes.
Oh.
So if I'm not mistaken, it's like the way that they have it is they have like a shell company that then scrapes, but then gives it to another company, which then sells it. Like that's how they. It's kind of like, you know how if I create artwork for the Bulls, I sell it to the Bulls.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Licensing. Right.
Licensing.
Yeah.
They would say the Bulls is the AI company, and the Bulls would sell it to their own AI company where they're like, well, you can have the rights to any of this. And then the AI company then uploads it to their thing. But they own both companies. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of shadiness there. But Carlo Ortiz, the way that it works with the AI is the more that people put the artist in the prompt, the AI gets better at producing the artwork of the artist.
That's scary.
Yeah. So actually there was a bit of cyberbullying with, I feel bad for forgetting the artist, but she got kind of viral because she was kind of calling out Epic Games and Fortnite for saying that they charged her too little for like a wallpaper screen, loading screen. She was like, I did the math. If you do this and this and this, and you guys make this, and you're charging me only like $2,000. And they were like, some people were like, you should be lucky or whatever. And they were really against her. And then she made a stance on AI. And so as a form of cyberbullying, people started throwing her name into the algorithm, so that the algorithm get better at doing her artwork as a form of. Exactly. Does that sound like?
That's so trippy that's become a version of bullying.
It's a form of cyberbullying that no one is even thinking. Again, in all of these aspects where this like the Wild West and all this new technology, if there was just like beacons of like integrity and intention, like that shouldn't be allowed right there. Like that's so messed up.
And that's what's fucked up is like you can't control how other people operate.
There's always going to be people that are going to do it, right?
Yeah.
Someone tomorrow could come up with unconsciously curious.
Damn, that's pretty cool.
Right. And then they can be like, oh, cool. And then they like, what's your name backwards? Do you know it? Mine's Darnock. It's Darnock.
Rotkiv.
And yeah, and it's that. And they're starting it. Man, that would suck.
A restaurant did that in the pandemic. The restaurant Ever created a burger concept and then they called it Rev.
Oh.
That's funny.
But yeah, AI is interesting. I'd stay away. I'm so happy with my circle being what it is. I welcome all types of innovation. I mean, dude, I was the only person doing Photoshop paintings in a traditional school. Like I wanted to bring my laptop to paint the nude model. And they were like, I don't know yet. Now, obviously, you could probably do that.
Did they think you would like take pictures or something?
I think so. But also they're like, I think they're not the teachers exactly, but I know a lot of students had a very elitist mindset where it's like
pure.
This is painting.
Oh, yeah.
And I will say, as a digital artist, for a lot of traditional artists who I do meet who do have an issue with like what I do, it's amazing how these open-minded individuals will almost look down on the fact that like I do commercial work.
Okay. Oh.
So I've had that experience.
It's because they don't get the bread. I don't know.
I don't know
they're
what
doing
it is,
something. I don't know.
But it's obviously some form of insecurity.
Yeah, right.
Dude, it's like, do you, do me, as long as we're not hurting each other, right? And it's progressing something.
What if you can like touch on the main differences for you between digital and what would you call it, traditional?
Yeah.
Is it like you can do more? I know your colors pop, right? But like, can you just manipulate more things, or is it easier? It flows better. Like, what aspects of it? Which differences do allow you to lean more towards digital?
Sure. In terms of commercial work, the editability is just why I decided to go into it mostly. You know, back in the day, Drew Struzan, the movie poster god, who did like Harry Potter, Indiana Jones, all these ones,
nice.
The Thing, like all these movie posters that are just so epic and iconic.
Sure.
If he had an edit, he would have to repaint sections in oils or acrylics or whatever it was.
I see.
And in terms of speed,
now that I'm thinking that that's all used to be traditional.
It was all traditional.
That's so wild.
And not only that, you look into him. Drew Struzan, the Thing poster, it was a one-nighter, so like he had to like send it off wet. Oh. And he didn't have the script either. It was given like a brief of like what the movie's about, and so that picture is actually his actual.
Why would they do that?
They didn't have the time, man.
Oh my!
And they needed it, and we need this. And every artist will tell you, you do take everything. You take as much as you can. It's just a learning experience. Everything's gonna help hone your craft, right? If it feeds like all of your like you should have these things that you
like value systems,
right? You should have these values for each project. Does it fulfill this? Does it fulfill this? Okay, and then I'm take it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like so editability was the hugest thing. And then I'm not gonna lie, I at school, besides drawing with graphite, I didn't feel comfortable with a lot of other things. Yes, I could paint, but I didn't feel like, could I do this the rest of my life? And then when I started seeing these concept artists who were doing what I thought was like these crazy masterful paintings, but no one looks at it that way. It's like concept art for The Last of Us. If you ever look at it, you'll just be like,
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Same with Mandalorian. Yeah.
That guy, if I'm not mistaken, I remember following him on Instagram, and just for kicks, he was designing stormtroopers, alternate stormtroopers. And he was doing it all the time as a personal project.
That's awesome.
Which is what I think is the new resume.
Project. Yeah.
They grabbed him. And that's how he started working on
him.
Mandalorian. How crazy is that, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's just digital. When I started doing it, I was like, whoa, this is just so new. And it was kind of like that rebellion against the tradition, right? There's always this like nature I've had in me. So I fell in love with it instantly. And it wasn't until the middle of junior year too. So I had to like learn it very quickly.
Yeah.
So I started looking at like websites online that I was doing a lot of additional work outside of college. Because I could only get so much because I was the first digital artist to really say I was a digital artist there.
Right.
So I had to do a lot of extracurricular.
So then, I guess walk us through like that. Some of the first, besides, in addition to Bleacher Report, working with the Bulls and the NBA, the deck of cards, or you were at the House of Bulls recently, like. Explain like navigating those, because I mean I've been approached by these groups because they just want me to fill the seats. Like I have a group that I can bring and they want me to fill the seats, but I've asked them like, is there any way we can create a scholarship for this EMT program and whatever? Like
interesting.
I know they support other groups. It's like I want to be that with them, but how was that process with working with the NBA or the Bulls?
Well, I will say this, and not even in the Bulls in particular, it is amazing how it doesn't work the way that you would think.
Okay.
A lot of it is very based on a partnership, and that's actually where a lot of the money would come from. Like an outsourced partnership that's not the team. And that's actually where the money comes for a lot of projects, for a lot of teams, which is super like surprising to me.
Do they ever tell you where this money's coming from?
Yeah, it's usually like a coat. Like if you looked at everything that I've done with a lot of these teams, it's always like someone else that's tagged. That's just, I think, how these teams operate.
Sure. So they don't inherently have. I mean, the money is probably reserved for the team, right?
The money's
like
there. I think they'd rather make Zach LaVine a little more comfortable than Conrad Javier, which is fine. Zach, we love you. It's fine. But that's usually my experience is you get approached when there's a partnership. Now, I will say my first gig with the Bulls, they were on my like 5-year plan.
Hell yeah.
So the Chance thing happened. And I'm like trending and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I just want to meet Chance. In the middle of all that, I got an email from the Bulls because I was also tagging them in all the Chance stuff. because I was trying to be smart with it. Like I knew this project was coming, so I was gonna tag. I tagged ESPN. I tagged the Bulls, the Lakers, like all those big teams.
Do you prefer tags over hashtags, or just both?
Both. I do everything. But tags,
sure,
were working at the time.
Cool.
I think nowadays tags are not
really okay.
They're not really that good. But I tagged them and they were like, we saw this piece and we thought it was amazing. And it wasn't until like 5 months after that we found out you actually live in the area. Would you want to come in? And at the time, they didn't really have like a big digital team. I mean, it's the Bulls. They're going to probably sell out, right? Regardless. And so I actually came to them with the offer of letting me do 3 illustrations for free. Like, let me just create hype pieces for you. And I would ask as a tag. So that was very much like, since they were a dream client, I very much had like these specific rules for dream clients where it's like,
nice.
I will do anything to just be associated with this team. You know, one of my fondest memories with my dad is going to see Michael Jordan play the Utah Jazz before their playoffs. So this was the last regular season game. I was in the 300 level.
Oh, wow.
I was on my dad's shoulders with binoculars. And so like, to me, the Bulls hold something that's not just for me, but for my, you know, my family and all my friends who have been at this point just really supporting the kid who was good at drawing. And now it's like, they always believed in me and they agreed. And after that 3rd illustration, they were like, well, you know, we're partnering with Adobe and we would love for you to make content for next year that's with Adobe. And I was like, whoa, two birds, one stone.
Yeah, Adobe, yeah.
Right, Adobe. And I was like, cool. And I was like, can I get a cloud membership? You know? So again, it's like I was able to advocate for myself and I was more than willing to, like, I didn't feel bad about that working for free. I know that there's a lot of like negative connotations with it, but like, they're a dream client. I'm willing to do anything to work with you.
What was the response to that?
They were just like, no, I mean, we're going to try to get you some money. You know, like my connect at the time was like, no, like we don't have to do it for free. Like we would love for you to get something. And I was like, how about this? Like, let's just see what the impressions and the reactions look like in the beginning. And then I knew it'd be great. I mean, I just did a chance piece that had over 500 million impressions. Like, you know, it's like millions of impressions just from one guy. I'm like, this is the Bulls. Like I can make some Jimmy Butler, Joakim, you know, D Rose, just the old boozer. So it was like the team. So I was like, dude, as long as I can be associated, I'm good. And now, fast forward, I'm 6 years in with them, you know, working with them. And it's like because I created this relationship with them, right? I came to them with only something to offer. And I wasn't even really asking them for anything in between except that you respect me as a creative and I respect you.
It wasn't transactional for you. Was it the first time you offered that? Like, because it was your dream? What if you did get burned? You wouldn't care?
I think if I got burned with them, they're still one of my best clients. So it's like hard to even think about them burning me. If I got burned
in the sense that it didn't go as far as you thought it would,
I would have just kept going. I think even directly after, I was still creating. How I do it is I create artwork that's about the player and the team, and it's so hyped that like it has to be shared.
Right. You make it personal.
I make it super personal. Like their art director, their creative director, there's no way they can't see this. And so that's how I've treated every single thing. Like anytime I wanted to work with a team, I do that. And you know what's crazy? It works every time. It works every single. It's like fail proof.
Who's the guy? The guy that he was at Side Practice. Jarvis Kim?
Oh yes, I think so.
I don't know if it's JVRS.Kim, I think, but he did a Simalu.
Simalu, yes.
Yeah, right? And the actor bought his painting.
Dude, it's crazy. And that's like, again, it goes back to people who get viral. It's like, it's not surprising to me anymore because I'll be following these artists and like, how many times have I painted the Bulls before they actually, like, I put myself out there and I put the personal time to know and trust that they are going to see this. And it wasn't even like guessing. The work was good. The work, if I was an I put myself, I had empathized with like their art. I'm like, if I see this, dude, we don't have this content on our.
That ability is so crucial.
That is one of the single most things that has put me in the place that I'm in right now.
Imagining who is in charge of choosing who to collaborate with and what their thought processes are or interests are, or like what's going to catch their eye.
I think about it nonstop, and it's not, and it's
how much do you let it get away from what you I mean, I guess with the Bulls it is what you want to do, but like, you know, some like doing things for people, your clients, and then for you, right? but I guess you're working with your dream client, so it's it's wild.
The craziest thing about it is since it didn't exist for them before, art directors and creative directors and digital heads, they want you to tell them and show them what is cool. Like since they never had that content, you're like, dude, this is like tried and true. Like Conrad's, look, this thing that I'm giving you, I'm already doing the art direction for you. All you gotta do is sign off. That to them is like, wait, I don't have to.
The heavy lifting, yeah.
Yeah,
but
so
it is a lot of trust.
You have to, it's so much trust.
Right.
And it's the reason why I have repeat clients versus like working with the Bulls only once.
Yeah.
And why almost every single art director that I work with, it becomes more of like a different relationship than just transactionals, because like I'm moving into art direction. I'm moving into, because now I'm like comfortable into like now putting myself into what companies would deem right, like valuable, and then like executing on it. Like that Bulls, that Bulls gig or the NBA gig I did, that was a part of like, I got to see the inner workings of like a big machine. There was like 19, 20 artists. So then the work I did for EA, where I did 50 trading cards for them, that was only me. That's like the work of what a studio should have. So like, I was like, okay, if I can do that, then I can do this. And that job led to this. And so I'm like practicing how I pitch to art directors, practicing and it's like, wait a second, I'm starting to really guess and understand what these people want and need. And it's more about like understanding the demo, but it's also understanding that you could, like, if I was the Kansas City Chiefs art director, they might like this. And it's just, I'm trusting my gut every time. And it just happens to be rewarded, and that reward comes from just the experience and actually loving the sports and loving the teams and playing with them. Right? Yeah, I'm not bullshitting any of these teams. Like,
no,
it's impossible too. You can't bullshit fans. Sports is the most unforgiving place. I post LeBron and people are just all up in arms. I'm like, dude, if you don't respect this dude, you're trash anyway.
Respect is one thing. Calling him the GOAT is another thing.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and people understand because they see where I'm from. I mean, literally, it's just like it's different. But you can't BS integrity. You can't BS like a good message. You can't BS good art. It's gotta be the full thing.
Right.
Right. It's not guessing. You can't guess. It's like,
well, how do you know when it's good enough?
I think it's the honesty thing. Like,
well, any sense of perfectionism?
I mean, perfectionism is, man, that is another form of resistance.
Unattained. Oh, right, exactly.
It's a form of resistance. If you're gonna draw the perfect figure in charcoal, and you're not gonna stop until it's perfect, you will never finish that drawing.
Like David by Michelangelo.
You'll just never finish. Who knows the context of actually when he stopped?
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's perfect to us. Like the Mona Lisa was popular after the fact. And not only that, there's conspiracy theories that say that's not even the real Mona Lisa. So that's what I'm saying is like, it's all about how you frame it, right? It could be a rainy day, or man, this light's great for photos, right? It's like, oh man, that's how you have to frame it for the art directors too. Oh man, this could be worth $1,000, $2,000, but man, it's going to be like, dude, this artist totally just did this work for us. So now we can produce content. It's giving us more ideas. And all of a sudden you realize that they're not as like I'd see those big companies be like, dude, they're predatory, or like, you know what I mean? Like they have no heart. And then it's like, no, you treat them with respect. They treat you with respect. And the ones that don't, what did I call it? How I call it is I phase out older clients, and I make room for bigger clients.
Sure, yeah.
That I deserve.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I'm not going to ever like burn bridges, but I'm also going to, I can choose.
That's good.
Right.
Okay.
You have to just, hey man, you decided to work with them. I don't really want to hear you complain that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Own it. Right.
No FOMO here. My FOMO is like gone.
Wow.
It's gone. I have thrown.
Or imposter syndrome.
It's just really not really super existent with me too much anymore. Okay. And it's weird because it's weird to say, and I don't want to. I'm not trying to say you shouldn't.
As other digital artists have come up, nothing like that comes up for you because you just know yourself that well. Yeah.
What am I going to be able to do if some kid from?
Well, some people can just go crawl into a hole and not continue their work.
Exactly. You could do that. But I have tested myself so many times and been the second guesser of so many of these gigs. Like I am on the front lines negotiating this stuff. I am on the front lines of like, is this stroke gonna be right every single day. So like, you have to trust yourself eventually. And after 6 years, it's amazing to say, but it just hardens you. It's just like, you are a professional. You will do what it takes. And the little things, the little insecurities, if you don't feed them, they just wither away.
Okay.
You know, it's like plants, it's like, if I don't feed them, if I'm constantly like, dude, I don't like those hands, someone's going to notice the hands, right? A lot of people are like that with feet. People don't like to draw feet. It's like, well, if you draw them and it's like, well, that was a good foot. And then like 5 years later, it's like, yeah, I don't have the insecurity of the feet thing anymore. That's how I try to think of it. It's
okay.
Like, any way you can chip
that.
Any way you
I've
can
never
chip
heard
away.
it as a plant analogy.
Yeah,
if you don't water it or
just kill
don't
it,
feed
dude.
it. Yeah.
It's competitive in it. The good parts should really show in your work.
Okay.
The things you're most passionate. That's the stuff that in your critique.
Okay.
Like,
Are there, so as you're coming out of your like brief hiatus, like what are you, is there anything you're looking forward to at the moment? We're nearing hour 50. So if we were to try to wrap it up, and obviously you're welcome back anytime, but like if we were to try to wrap up this segment, it's like, what can people expect, or what are you excited for in the near future?
Sure. I last year, and I'll try to keep as brief as I can. Last year, I think I did have a little bit of like growing pains where I was trying to maybe scale too big, and that's great. I love having those failures because then it's like I learned the hard way.
Scale how?
Hiring multiple artists, trying to make it more of a machine to like help me become what now is, which I haven't really told anyone, is Rad Studios. So becoming eventually a team of artists who can then offer multiple services for
under the style of Conrad, under your style,
100%. Or
how do you just let go of, like, how do you you have that much trust in
I mean, again, this is why I haven't really said it enough, but like I've actually been working with artists on the back end too, and people to test out this thing, and bringing people in with me in the meetings. And there is a lot of power, and once you say something, you're kind of held accountable.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's manifestation.
It's manifestation. So I'm trying, that's what I'm most excited about is,
excellent.
Instead of it being so big right away, is to like, let's just keep feeding what's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Sure.
But also let's now transition it to where now we can provide value to other artists, where if I have multiple jobs and I can't take them, can I trust someone to like take on this one specific role, and then it's for the good of the team, and then I art direct, and then I finish, and that's like all under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
Right. Like there are so many artists that deserve a shot in the way that's like, it's not just all by yourself, like how I did it. And like, fuck yeah, dude.
They just need that opportunity.
Let's do it together. And not only that, looking into like, now that I've had this experience of negotiating with clients and bigger companies and not being afraid of them anymore, like they need us more than we need them. I would love to be that advocate for our artists too, where it's like, hey, we can do, I mean, I've done it. I've done the jobs of an entire like studio essentially. Do I need all of the accolades or the money? Like money's not going to, I'm an artist, so I didn't go into this for the money, right? I mean, enough to be happy and to have a wedding with my fiance is great, to have, be able to be on my own. But if I can give back now, if I could just like, that's my next transitional step as I start to round towards 40, right? Like I'm going to round up, is what I've been telling everyone. It's like, I'm rounding up soon. And, man, it's not about me anymore. It's like so not about me.
It's wild because although you have achieved a level of mastery, what is this? You said year 6? Like that's not that long.
No, it's not.
That's so wild.
And it's cool too. And
maybe it's not time though. Maybe it's like what you have accomplished within the time.
Sure. And it's like, it's almost like there are so many things that to me make so much sense. That I think that if I just gave that guidance to artists and we were a part of the same team, where it's like we all are just badasses who want to create the best work, and we work together to get bigger gigs and to do multiple things, like how can that sounds amazing to me. I've always loved the team aspect.
To like bring people with,
Oh my gosh. And not only that, this, it's just, and I'm sure you've talked to people who discuss how important it is to not like, do you have to release control?
Yeah.
To grow.
It's tough because you want to maintain consistency as well.
You do, but I'm the dreamer. I'm the visionary, right?
Right.
And I need like there also has to be that manager who's like, bring it down. And then like, let's talk about the executable things that we can do. Because that's not me. Like me, I'm like, dude, let's you and I make the best podcast of all time. Right. And that kind of grounding is great. And I'm not going to lie to you, man. It's a good problem to be busy in terms of illustration. But last year, there was a moment there where I had 16 jobs at once. The quality went down. Maybe people don't see that, but I don't give a fuck at what they think.
You felt it, right?
Right. I felt it. And for me, and my integrity is like, I'd rather...
Did it get to the point where you're just like, I feel like I just got to finish this?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And it's just a disservice to the client,
sure.
and it's a disservice to the art, the making of art, in my opinion. Like I see these other ad agencies or other teams, and I'm like, what makes them officially like an ad agency or like a client-based
It's the
team?
office space.
It's the office space, dude. But like, if they're always hiring the same artists to do the same stuff, and we like come together, imagine what we could do. And all of a sudden, we're creating pitches for them, and then now they're asking to collaborate with us. That to me is the next step, because I've said, I had a couple goals when I first started illustrating, and I'm lucky enough to. I've worked hard enough to get a lot of those goals like scratched off.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not about me. It's we could do more together. And I don't really have much ego in it in terms of like, I'm only one person. And so if we could do more with multiple people, let's go. And so that is my favorite thing right now that I'm looking forward to. And going back to traditional painting. So I've been really thinking about how a lot of people think that the digital part is just easy. But if you don't have the traditional skills, it doesn't mean shit.
Right.
It really doesn't.
Oh,
You can learn fully digital. I'm not saying like that's a bad thing, but I'm saying that for me, where I come from, my history, the yearning to paint has been on my mind since day one.
Cool.
So if I can alleviate and give myself some time by having this other person work on work
to go do that thing,
yeah, I call it first you yearn, and then you learn, and then you earn. Like that's how I think about.
There's got to be one more to give back.
Right. I don't know what it is, but I'm past that point of like yearning to work with X and whatever because of what, like some kind of acclaim or whatever. I love creating, and I think that's what
that's amazing, because
I've fallen in love
I don't
with.
think that's usually the case, right? Like there were a good question is like, well, how did you navigate those feelings of working with your dream client? Because it's all feelings, whether it's good or bad, is fleeting. So as fast as it came, it's gonna go just as fast. You know,
it's amazing how quickly 5 commercials will be forgotten.
Right, like
it took you 6
one
months.
day you're celebrated by millions for whether it's chance or an athlete, and then the next day it's like crickets. And it's like what the fuck? It's like these super high highs, and then it's like ooh.
And I think a lot of people, hey man, no judgment. That's what they want. They want acclaim. They want virality. That's cool. That's not my drive, man. My drive is can we create something like creatively, like something cool, like something that like could do what I did in terms of like start in a genre of art that wasn't really talked about and make a full career. And not only that, turn on Instagram and you can't even see, like there's so much space now for it.
Right.
Can we do that again? Yeah. But like movies or film? Can we make our own films? That's super cool.
I saw Kid Cudi's like Intergalactic.
Amazing.
Right.
Look at that. And look at how many of those artists from Spider-Verse are now doing their own thing.
Okay. Are they? Okay. I wasn't aware.
It's crazy. But those 2 things are my favorite. That, and then the last thing is getting married. That's probably
hell yeah,
another creative journey.
It is.
You know, dude.
Yeah. What if you were to put a percentage on it, like 0 to 100%? How much of the planning process are you at?
In terms of like Red Studios?
No, wedding.
Oh, okay. I'm about to say, the wedding, we found a photographer. Okay. We have a meeting with her. Then we found the videographer, and now if our venue is not on fire, I think we're basically looking at like maybe 50 or 60%. I think we need a DJ and flowers. And then I need to still ask a few guys to be in my party. So I think it's like 50.
Well, there's like
My fiance's
production
gonna be so
and
mad.
lighting.
Yeah, she's gonna be like, no, it's 30.
I just did a. Yeah, I know.
She'd be like, what are you talking about?
There's like a suit fitting. You got to buy invitations or
we're gonna make
save
ours.
the dates.
Yeah, I think we're gonna make ours.
I think we're ordering like a custom embossing for.
We got a wax thing.
Hell yeah! That's,
You know,
hell
dude,
yeah!
we are, dude. She pressed it, Alexa,
It's
and
sick.
so it's just like A and C, and I'm like, dude, I feel like Beauty and the Beast right now.
It's sick.
Like
Yeah.
I'm Gaston just throwing out like invitations, embossing though.
Similar concept. But you want to make it your own. So
Yeah, you want to make it your own. So what about you?
If I were to guess, probably 75 to 80%.
Well, yours is much sooner.
Much sooner.
Right.
The last couple things we did was video and production. Venue was first. I think that just lines everything up. You got to nail a date down with the venue. Photography was high up on the list, and then flowers nearby. And a lot of it is like kind of referred from the venue too.
Cool.
But then being a wedding vendor myself, like it helps to like kind of have some insight into how I would like my own wedding to look. But suit fitting at ESQ yesterday.
Ooh.
It's gonna be at least like $3,000.
Is that how much it costs?
For the suit? If you
bulletproof?
wanna treat yourself, you're a bomber jacket guy, right?
I do. Yeah, I'm a huge bomber jacket guy.
I don't have a bomber jacket. He let me wear one. Everything's custom in
There's
there.
a bomber jacket suit thing?
Not a suit, but he makes
okay.
bomber jackets too. It was like $900 for a bomber jacket.
Worth it.
But he's like pouring water on my sleeve and just like runs right off, and I'm like, what? Or like I tried on a bamboo dress shirt and just like the lightest thing I've ever worn. It's antimicrobial and everything. Like it's breathable. It's
So
light.
you swear it doesn't get those neck stains or anything?
Yeah. Well, he made custom shirts without the top button, so the collar doesn't have to be a button. So there's no button here. It's just no button because people don't wear a tie these days.
That's like a John Wick thing.
He's on another, and he's been on the pod too.
Really?
His name's Go Wang, and ESQ is what attorneys put after their name.
Okay.
But I think he's gonna kill me if he listens to this. But like I think he made this in law school. He started making custom suits, and it just became a thing.
That is the coolest
And
thing.
he blew up because he does athletes. He's done the Bears, and then a lot of actors and actresses or actors, whoever wears suits.
But
Here's the thing: on the inside, you can put in Alexa's handwriting, stitching, whatever. I saw one that says "I love you" in their handwriting, or on the inside, you can put any design to your engagement photos in the inside of the suit. He'll stitch it like the picture.
Whoa! So
Shit
I can
like
do
that.
like an illustration.
Yes. So it's worth a visit. Tell him Victor sent you, but it's worth a visit. It's appointment only.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Send it to me.
It's called ESQ.
Put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Links in the comments.
That'd be
below.
super awesome, and like just super touching. Really quick, like you interviewed the Fernwood Barber guys, my favorite dudes.
Yeah. Also PBL. Yeah.
Yes, and they I met Dang through basketball, and so it's just like, isn't it crazy how many not coincidences, man? It's just like somehow if you have the skills, people will find you, and you just start doing cool stuff with cool people.
Yeah, no, this has been the greatest excuse to like find and chat with very interesting and very accomplished individuals. But also, my fiance, she's Filipina.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, and she is also we did an episode together. She's a travel or agency surgical tech, meaning like 13-week-long contracts.
Oh, jeez Louise.
So the benefits aren't the best, but they get just like nursing, right? But like the hourly rate is like 2 to 3 times as much. And she's at Northwestern at the moment. I work at Northwestern as well. That's like my fail-safe. If everything fails, I have my 9 to 5 at Northwestern. And
I need to get one of those.
I told her like, I don't drop my name. I only work once a week. Like you'd probably get more clout by being Filipina.
So true. Have you done the my mom made Alexa do the egg roll test?
Lumpia? What do you? Oh, make the egg roll?
It's like
I
to
haven't
roll
yet.
it.
I haven't.
Oh,
yet.
dude, it was the funniest thing
I'll
because she
try.
didn't know
I'm
what was
down.
happening. So my mom was like, "Oh, you like help me roll," and then I was like, "Wait a second."
This is a test.
And like, dude, she won't be mad that I say it, but like, dude, the first one was like, it wasn't it. And I looked at her and I said, "Handle your shit." I mean, she loves her already. She could do no wrong, but like, I was like, isn't it funny, those traditions?
Yeah, no, it's important. And like I said earlier, like our wedding date was her grandparents, the only set of grandparents that are still around. It's their anniversary, so they're gonna walk us down the aisle, like her grandmother with me.
Don't even.
Yeah, and then the last time her mom walked with her dad was their wedding, right? So it's like everything's kind of perfect.
That's so cool.
And you want to find ways to, like we're Chinese, but I'm not gonna do like there's a tea ceremony and stuff like that. And like
sounds cool.
I just don't relate to it. Yeah, it's just like
sure.
it's giving tea to your elders, and then they give you like money or jewelry. I just don't relate to it. But I want to find a way to honor the elders, and her grandparents were the first people of that generation that spoke English and fluent English, and otherwise I never was able to communicate with mine, right? So I'm sure you and I can do a whole episode on like,
oh dude, I would love
our thoughts on like being Asian American or like the immigrant culture and stuff like that.
The assimilation aspect of it and the family, and
or just wanting to appease your parents, right? It's just like
100%,
or wanting to be seen and heard by them.
I'm the first non-medical field
okay
person in my family, so
yeah,
that also played a part in being like driven to do well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, no matter how well you do, I feel like you won't be, and I know you're very self-aware of like you do it for you at the end of the day, but some part of you is just like, I would like to be seen.
100%. Luckily I have 2 other brothers who can be seen enough.
Yeah, that too.
Like I'm the last born too, so it's like
it's tough though, because we know the way they are. The reason why they are the way they are
100%
is because that's all they've known, right? They weren't given as many options. I feel like it's a luxury to discover self-awareness and self-actualization and things like that. And their definition of accomplishment and success is like financial freedom, and maybe to them it's like medicine. It's safe. It's a safe bet.
It's the safest bet. Yeah.
And so I understand that. So when you have that understanding, like, be the bigger person in a way, but it's still frustrating.
I like I said, I still get it today. I love them though.
To wrap, where can people find you?
Mostly Instagram.
Yeah.
It's Conrad.Javier.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get on Twitter, but I'm also scared out of my life to go on there. I've just never used it. Like, I don't know. I'm being a curmudgeon about it, I think. I just feel like I heard.
Would you rather TikTok?
I mean, I could dance, sure. I'll do
karaoke.
I mean, we can have our own thing. I might sing at our wedding. That's another thing.
Oh, okay.
I might do a performance.
Is that a surprise?
Shit. No, it's not a surprise.
Okay.
No, she wants me to. But I'm saying like, yeah, Conrad.Javier on Instagram.
Amazing. Conrad, thank you so much.
It's
been an honor. And we're looking forward to whatever, at the studio and the next chapter of this phase for you.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one. That's it.
Cool.
That's it.